Did you not have a self-preservation instinct, which is, I am destroying my career here?
Again, I just thought, who would disagree with this? The Father Ted musical has been cancelled because of them.
This would have sold out immediately.
Whoever puts this out is basically printing money.
The other day I had to hide my car in case it's repossessed. That's how bad my money situation is at the moment. Again, what have I said that is so terrible to deserve that kind of treatment? As someone puts it, the patriarchy in stilettos.
Graham Linehan.
Hello.
What a journey it's been for you. I mean, you're back on the show, of course, but first time in the flesh. It's been years of what must feel like an arduous battle for you, expressing your concerns about trans ideology, losing a hell of a lot of opportunities, some would say your career to a large extent. And here you are, probably feeling, certainly in terms of what you were saying, quite vindicated.
Yeah, well, you'd kind of have to tell me. I always think every shocking news story I hear about, rapists in women's prisons or men in women's sports, I always used to think, oh, this is the one. Mm-hmm. This is the one that'll show people that it's like when Martina Navratilova broke cover and started talking about fairness in sports, I thought, oh, it's over. It's over. She's like a lesbian icon. So, and of course, they just monstered her exactly the same way that they monstered everybody who goes into this debate. So, yeah, you'd really have to tell me whether it's turning around or not. But if it is, I'm very happy to hear it.
You don't think it's turning around?
I'm not sure. Because I'm in such a weird position, I'm right at the center of it. I didn't mean to be, but the more I insisted, hey, this is something that we should all be talking about. It's not. It's the things they're telling us are taboos are not really taboos. The more I said that, the more I kind of increased my notoriety. As I say in the book, like Pink News have written 75 hit pieces about me. And so there was there's been a swirl of misinformation around me. Also, that extends to my Wikipedia page, which we can't change. Everything is written so that it's the worst, most negative view of me. And I've just been in this strange position, very isolated. I wrote the book.
What's it called? Tell everybody.
Sorry, I've written the book. Yeah, the book
You've written the book, right?
Yes, I've written a book. The book is called Tough Crowd, and it's a memoir. The trans stuff is only the last, third of the book. But, I've been basically writing that book while completely isolated, having lost all my contacts, really, from my previous life, during COVID as well. So it was like 2 years of being cancelled during COVID is a very strange experience, even more isolating. And all I've been doing is I've been saying exactly the same thing that I've been saying for the last 5 years. But I had to write a book before people started actually listening to the content of what I was saying.
One of the things I found genuinely really striking and unpleasant about the way that people were treating you is there were some people who I would have thought owed some loyalty. And this is what happened with J.K. Rowling as well, where the actors who got massive breaks from acting in Harry Potter then essentially stabbed her in the back or certainly turned their backs on her. Likewise with you, there are people who got big breaks with roles in things that you'd written. People like Graham Norton, for example, coming out and saying there's no such thing as cancel culture, having watched you be cancelled for like several years in a row. There's only accountability culture. I mean, that's got to be gutting.
Yeah, and it keeps happening. And not only that, but people go out of their way to attack me. Bill Bailey said it was, who I cast in Black Books, said that my activism was baffling, as if it was like just a kind of, a thing I was doing for recreation. The issues here are extremely high stakes, the health of children, the safeguarding of women, fairness in women's sports, these are all extreme. So the idea that it's baffling, and then Graham Norton, as you say, says there's no such thing as cancel culture, he must know that I've had my life destroyed by trans rights activists. He must know that the Father Ted musical has been cancelled because of them, and yet he makes this statement about accountability. But again, what am I being held accountable for? Everyone agrees with me. You know what I mean? It's just that for some weird reason, this ideology has kind of taken over in certain areas, publishing, the theater, journalism. For some reason, it's these middle-class pursuits is the wrong word, but it's these middle-class industries that have been, captured. And everyone outside of these industries, no one believes it. No, everyone believes that women should have fair sports, that men shouldn't be able to go into women's toilets or changing areas or rape crisis centers, whatever it happens to be, simply because they identify as a woman. No one believes this outside of these industries. And also, you cannot speak to anyone about it. If you talk to people about it, they do the equivalent of putting their hands over their ears. And I think it's because it's a middle class phenomenon. Everybody in the middle class knows somebody whose child identifies as non-binary or has some sort of similar identification thing going on. And these kids are kind of feeding their parents a line of nonsense, that the parents, who love their kids, are just swallowing whole.
So Graham, when I was growing up, I used to watch Father Ted, loved it. One of my all-time favourite sitcoms, brilliant. So many of your shows I watched and I loved. How did you get involved in going from that to this?
Well, I kind of always had my ear to the ground in terms of things that were coming down the pipe. When I was just starting out in comedy, I went to see a comedy masterclass by Danny Simon, who's Neil Simon's brother. And I remember at the time, someone said a funny thing. They said, because he was listed on the ad as being one of the greatest comedy writers in the world, and a friend said he's not even the greatest in his own family. But this was kind of unfair because he actually did know his onions. He worked on the Mary Tyler Moore Show. He worked on Bilko, which is one of my favorites, much better known over here than it is in the US, even though it's an American sitcom. So I wanted to hear what he had to say. And one of the things he said was, anyone who's writing sitcoms should be aware of changing social trends, because a very good place to set a sitcom is at the edge of something like that, something new coming along. And his example was the Mary Tyler Moore Show, because there were a greater number of women entering the workplace suddenly because of the pill. And so they wrote this show about a career woman who comes and works on a news program, except he used the word women's livers, which was really funny. But I always felt that was really good advice. So I always kept my antennae up for things that were changing. And it also kind of naturally aligned with my... I'm just a very curious person. I like new music. I like new books. I don't read the classics as much as I read stuff that's supposed to be very good now. And yeah, there were a couple of things. Like, the only reason I'm a poker player is because I was just an early adopter of the kind of the poker boom that happened when Chris Moneymaker won the World Series, because he entered into a competition for 10 quid or something, or free. It was a free ticket, span it up into a series of tournament entries, kept winning, and then won the World Series. So it just completely created a poker boom. And I remember getting into poker thinking, oh, it's very special. Really, no one else is doing this. Everyone else was doing it. It was just because I was kind of always on the lookout for new things I could get involved with. And in the same way, I kind of realized that there was a big thing happening with the internet, which was that some people knew exactly what it was and exactly what was going on, and other people hadn't a clue. Like, they didn't know the words for things they didn't know that, you know, I don't know, I'm trying to think, what's a good example? Well, you know, you like, oh God, this is one from the book, but like, you could say to someone, oh, what browser are you using? And someone won't have a clue what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I realized that was a good, someone who knows a lot about computers, someone who doesn't know a lot about computers is a good conversation that will mark that new social change, you know? So the IT crowd kind of got born out of that. So then I was still paying attention. I was still trying to see what was coming down the pipe. And it was actually an episode of the IT crowd I wrote that had a trans character in it. And I noticed that the pushback was extraordinarily vicious. Much more so than any other joke I'd written that had got a kind of any kind of pushback. In fact, I'd never really got any pushback for a joke before. This was the first time, which marked it out as, oh, this is interesting.
And bear in mind, you were joking about Catholic priests in Ireland in the 90s.
Yes, yeah, exactly. But then again, it would. I don't want to give myself too much credit there. It was kind of safe.
Yeah.
Catholic priests don't try and destroy your career, you know. But like, I noticed that happening first of all, and then Gamergate came along, and on Gamergate, I was sure I had completely, I completely absorbed what the issue was, what was going on, and I dismissed it as to everyone who would listen to me, and I had a lot of followers, as a misogynistic hate campaign, which on some levels it was. There were people kind of tagging along with it for that reason. But there were also a lot of guys who thought that they were fighting corruption in gaming journalism, you know? And I just kind of became a node, one more node of people who were saying, it's just a misogynistic hate campaign. That's all it is. Like a thought-terminating cliche, just to shut it down, rather than looking at all the complexities, see what was going on, see if there were any valid arguments from the other side. None of that. No strong manning a case. I just had my weapon, which was, it's just a misogynistic hate campaign. So anyway, Gamergate passed. And then I started noticing that suddenly during Gamergate, one of the most famous things that happened was a thing called Operation Lollipop, where all these trolls set up fake accounts of black women and pretended that they found Father's Day offensive. Right? And they set up a hashtag called something like End Father's Day.
Yeah.
Right? It was designed just to create as much havoc as they possibly could. I remember at the time, you know, the people who I was allying myself with on the left, very much on the left. I was always a very good little lefty. But these people were, you know, very critical of this this piece of trolling. Men dressing as men pretending to be women online to create havoc was considered by the left a bad thing when the right did it. And then the left started doing it. The same, I just saw the same types of anime avatars popping up that were on the other side during Gamergate. And I realized that, you know, basically there's always a huge contingent of men on the internet who really don't like women. They despise women. And they will do anything they can to undermine them and troll them and get their own back for all sorts of real and imagined slights in their past, you know? And they just switched horses.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're exactly the same people, but it was definitely a crossover, you know? And they just started abusing women online, targeting their work, doing all the Gamergate tactics, you know, which included swatting. You know what swatting is?
No, what's swatting?
Yeah.
Swatting is when, do you want to, I'm just...
It's very simple. So for example, if people are watching somebody who plays computer games on Twitch, they will find out what their address is, and then they will report a very serious crime as allegedly happening at that location.
Okay, got you.
So that they can watch on camera as a SWAT team descends on this person that they're watching.
Okay.
Like the camera is just an added bonus in that particular case. It was done to a lot of women during Gamergate, apparently. You know, and apparently one of the things the SWAT teams do when they go into a situation is they immediately kill the pet. They kill the family pet. So even if it doesn't result in the death of their targets, they've still caused a lot of distress and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, again, this was a tactic, terrible, worst thing in the world when it happens on the right. But when it happened, when the left were doing it, as happened to Tim, what's his name?
Tim Pool.
Tim Pool lately, there's not a word about it, you know? So I saw these kind of internet war tactics being used against the latest target, which was left-wing women who were being called TERFs, who were being subjected to work tribunals. They were being reported to the police. All sorts of things were going on. And I just thought, I had what I thought was a natural thought, which was, this is not right. This is a bad thing. We should all be trying to stop this. But again, because this new target were left-wing women, well, actually, no, I'm kind of confusing the issue, because what's very interesting about this, sorry, excuse me, let me rewind a little bit. This new target, the women the women in Gamergate who were being targeted were gamers, right? And gaming journalists and whatever.
Yeah.
The women who were being targeted this time were left-wing women who were really the backbone of a lot of left-wing activism in the UK. You know, like two of the people who were targeted were Helen Steele, who is the woman who single-handedly sued McDonald's, you know. Whatever you think of the action, it was an incredible feat for her to do it, and she was hugely respected among the left for it. And Linda Bellos, who came up with, I think, Black History Month in the UK. You know, these are two significant figures in left-wing activism. They're being called bigots. Linda Bellos is black, and they're being called bigots. And it's like, again, well, this isn't right. Why is this happening? I should say something, you know? But again, all these tactics, men pretending to be women online, targeting jobs, targeting livelihoods. When Gamergate was doing it, when the right were doing it, it was the worst thing in the world, and it was a sign that Trump and everything is going to create a hell on earth for LGBT people and all the rest of it, and feminists and women's. Yeah. But then when the left started doing it, exact same tactics, men pretending to be women online, targeting livelihoods, targeting, you know, one of the things that happened to me when I came out was people would literally just kind of contact all my friends and say, can I just ask why you're still following Graham Linehan? You know? And it was just like a kind of everything was done except talk about the issue. The issue itself, you couldn't bring it, you couldn't talk about it because, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, and when was the moment you came out? When was the moment you stepped forward and went, enough's enough, I'm going to make my voice
Just to be clear,
public?
he's not gay. He just said what he thinks.
Yes, of course, because you can't be gay because gay means there's a binary, so we can't have it.
Well, apparently I heard one guy tweeting recently that gay men are more frightened of saying they're GC than they were of coming out. Yeah. But, well, again, sorry to bring up another bit in the book, but I guess it is kind of, you know, central, but I was on morphine. I've had an operation to get a testicle removed, like Hitler. And I was on morphine, and there was a wound on my side that was covered by a bandage.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this doesn't feel too bad at all. And I hopped to my feet, chucked on my jeans, and just got ready to go. And the nurse came in and was like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, sorry, I thought it was just a, you know, quick. It was supposed to be a day release thing. You're supposed to have the operation and walk out later. So anyway, I got back onto the trolley. The morphine started, you know, was still kicking in. I didn't realize it had all. That's why I wasn't feeling any pain. And I just had my phone. I disastrously had my phone. And I'd been studying it for a few weeks or months even. I've been going, what is this? Am I getting anything wrong? Is there something I'm missing? And it was, and I just couldn't locate it. You know, people would say things like, "Oh, trans people have always been around. They're just braver now. That's the reason we're now noticing them." It's like, what?
So, and then,
It was, but it's like, the reason I know that's bollocks is because Shakespeare didn't notice them. And he noticed everything else about humanity. So how did he miss an entire cohort of people who have always existed, you know?
but you got involved in this essentially when you were on morphine.
Yeah.
Right, and that's when you started tweeting. That's when you started to get involved. That's when you made your voice public. But when you obviously got off morphine, which I assume you are, Graham.
It was about a year later.
Yeah.
No, I'm only joking.
But did you not have a self-preservation instinct, which is, I am destroying my career here. This is a career that I've worked really hard on. This is a career that is incredibly stellar. I'm universally respected in my industry, which, can I just say, in comedy is practically impossible. And then you hit this particular self-destruct button.
Well, that's the thing. I didn't realize it was a self-destruct button. Again, I just thought, who would disagree with this? Women are being swatted. Women are being, sorry, not swatted. That was Gamergate. Women are being targeted. They're losing their livelihoods. You know, one of the first stories I heard about in this fight was Vancouver Rape Relief, which had a dead rat nailed to the door because it won't accept men into the space because it's just for women only, and it includes trans-identified men in that. They nailed a dead rat to the door, you know. And then there's there's other stories that have happened since. Amy Ham, who is a Canadian nurse who put up a poster saying, "I love J.K. Rowling." She's still in a work tribunal 3 years later, you know, fighting for her job. And so I just thought, well, clearly we have to help these people. And it never occurred to me that people would go, well, actually, no, we're not. And we're not helping. Not only are we not helping these women, we're not helping you. All these colleagues I'd worked with for years, you know? And so I kind of made a bad bet when I was in my, you know, morphine state. I bet on you know, loyalty. And I bet that my friends, many of whom have daughters, would want to, you know, be in the same fight.
And you must have been shocked then when, you know, you get people who are friends, who are colleagues, some of whom actually got their big breaks for working on things that you'd written. People like Graham Norton coming out later saying, well, having watched you be cancelled over years, then saying there's no such thing as cancel culture, there's just accountability culture.
Yeah.
Because he could just say nothing.
Yeah.
He could just say nothing. And that would still, you know, you can have your opinion about it, but to pretend that what's happened hasn't happened and actively say something to the contrary, that is quite something.
Yeah, but I've found that it is completely standard for this fight. People will do anything to avoid having this conversation. And Graham Norton has just kind of decided that I've just popped out of existence. And the issue is such a non-issue that he won't even discuss it. You never hear him saying why women shouldn't have fair sports or Vancouver Rape Relief should have a dead rat nailed to the door, because they know their positions are indefensible. So what they do to save their own skin, which is what he's doing, is you know, they genuflect every so often. And one of the things you can one of the ways you can genuflect to the mob is by saying there's no such thing as cancel culture, even when your immediate colleague has had his life destroyed by it. You know?
We'll be back with Graham in a minute. But first, do you remember the Canadian trucker protest in 2022, where thousands of Canadians came out to protest COVID restrictions and vaccine mandates?
Now, these protests lasted for weeks, and the people out on the streets needed funds, as any grassroots protest would. So people set up online crowdfunding campaigns, which raised millions of dollars. Incredible! But once the Canadian authorities had started to criticise the crowdfunding platforms, ramping up pressure to close the campaigns, it didn't take long for the biggest crowdfunding platform, the one we've all heard of, to completely capitulate and shut the campaigns down.
Now, this is where our partners Give, Send, Go come in. They stepped in when the other platforms backed off and raised millions of dollars for the truckers. When they were criticized and dragged through the Canadian courts, Give, Send, Go said it respected diverse views and believed hope and freedom are values worth fighting for. This is why we're proud to partner with Give, Send, Go.
So, if you need to crowdfund for whatever means the most to you, then don't go to the big tech platforms. We recommend you do it on Give, Send, Go.
Starting a campaign on Give, Send, Go is easy and intuitive. Go to givesendgo.com today. That's givesendgo.com to start raising money for whatever is important to you.
And now, back to the interview.
And I wanted to come back to the question that Francis was exploring with you, which is, how can I put this? None of us are short of issues to care about. I think that's fair to say. There's modern slavery. There is, there's wars every fucking country at the moment. You know, like there's so many things that we could all care about. But you really focused in on this issue as being very important. Why is this such an important issue to you?
Well, again, first of all, I have a daughter, and I have a mum, and I had a wife, you know. I thought their rights were important, and again, I just find it. I think sometimes I find that conservative spaces still don't realize how key this is. You know, this is like the door that unlocks everything else, critical race theory and everything else. If half the population can dominate the other half and take big slices of the pie that over 100 years after the suffragettes, we'd worked out how to create a little bit of, I know it's a dread word, but equity between men and women, right? And suddenly there were a group of men who were suddenly grabbing pieces of this pie. The best example is sports. You know, they have a massive physical advantage. It's not reduced by transitioning. And many don't transition. They just say they're transitioning. And they get, you know, why wouldn't you do it? You get like huge cash prizes. But again, it's like, it's so clearly wrong. It's like you've kind of suddenly given some of the worst people in the world a license to behave abominably, you know? Like, is there anyone lower than someone who would join a woman's sport just to beat it? I don't think so, you know? So, like...
Really, Graham? Worse than a murderer, a paedophile, a rapist?
Sorry, yeah, you're right. One of my other problems, I used to be a movie and film critic, and I'm sometimes given to hyperbole.
There's a rhetorical flourish there.
It's a rhetorical flourish. But like, I do think that is pretty low.
Okay, fair.
So I just kind of thought, oh, well, everyone will see this. Like, I remember once I got into an argument with John Ronson, a journalist. Now, John Ronson, he's someone who should be all over this. He wrote a book called So You've Been Publicly Shamed.
Great book.
Yes, justifiably a well-regarded book. He told the story of Justine Sacco, I think her name was, who famously told a joke that was deliberately interpreted in the worst possible light while she was on a plane flight going from somewhere to somewhere.
She said, I'm going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS. Actually, I won't because I'm white, lol.
Yeah, it's okay.
And by the time
white.
she landed in Africa, like her life had been absolutely destroyed.
And it was clearly a anti-racist joke. It was about Western comfort, and her life was destroyed. And John wrote a very moving interview with her. And I thought, well, John will be all over this because this is the industrialization of those kinds of shaming tactics. Not a bit of it, you know. I showed him a photograph of a huge hulking bloke playing in a girls' basketball team. All the girls are like in their teens, and he seemed more worried about the bloke's feelings than any of the girls.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think that this industry has been captured to such an extent, particularly comedy, Graham? Because if you think the greatest comedy, in my opinion, I'm sure it's probably yours as well, are the ones who point out the things that nobody are talking about, saying the emperor has no clothes, etc., etc. A great hulking bloke playing basketball with a load of 14-year-olds. I mean, that to me seems a pretty ripe, territory for comedy.
Yeah, like Eddie, what I find really funny, I remember once, what's his name, Nish Kumar did a list of people who were joking about, I call them the Smiths, what's his name? His name Smith. Sam Smith.
Yeah.
I call him the Smiths because he's they, them pronouns. And, I would make fun of this because I think it's absurd.
Yeah.
And he's an absurd figure, just the same way I made fun of. I remember Sting cut an incredibly absurd figure when he was famous. We used to watch him on TV, and Arthur would always say, "Watch him take off his shirt. He will find a way." You know. But now the idea that this ridiculous man, Sam Smith, who's demanding we all use counterintuitive pronouns for him, is somehow off limits. Nish Kumar did a list, me and Andrew Doyle were in it, and Nigel Farage, I think, was on it. People who are making fun of Sam Smith, you know? And it's like, what are you talking about? These are the people we make fun of. Like Eddie Izzard is another ridiculous figure, you know? It's like running for election in a pink beret, using women's toilets, and just no one's allowed to say, this is a little bit wrong, this is not right, he shouldn't be doing it. You know, and no one's able to be comic about it, you know. So that was one of the things I tried to do when I was in this. I tried to make people realize we have this YouTube channel called The Mess We're In, where I talk about these issues with a Canadian gay man named Artie Morty and a Welsh feminist, Helen Stanland. And they're really smart and they're really funny, and we have a great laugh on it. And that was important to me, to break the spell. You know, it's like Nish Kumar is saying we can't make fun of ridiculous people, you know, and it's true. It's like the whole thing is like a disease in comedy. Like when did Trevor Noah ever go viral? I don't think ever. What are Nish Kumar's 5 best jokes? You know, and it's just they've changed their role into kind of, I call them regime comedians. They're just mouthpieces for what the mob is currently into, you know?
But Graham, I agree with all of what you said at the end, but why? Why do you think, let's really try and explore the core of this. Why is it that comedy, which is meant to be all of these things we've spoken about, has been taken over by this ideology? What is it about it? Is it the people in the industry? Is it the comedians themselves? What's going on?
I think one of the things, before you answer, Graham, we should say is it's the British comedy scene.
Yeah.
This has not been the case in America in anything like the same way.
Yes.
In America, people have no problem making fun of this issue.
Really?
On TV, maybe a different issue, but you go in the comedy, I mean, you go to Rogan's Club, for example, there's no shortage of people. And this isn't just in the last year or so. Like, there have been lots and lots of people who've been able to make jokes about all of these issues. I think there's something uniquely special about the British industry.
Absolutely, but it may not be the reason it was captured. Well, I'm not sure. Maybe you'll be able to tell me whether the makeup is different of you know, American comedians. But I think comedy is another middle class industry, and basically this is a mass delusion that has particularly affected the middle class. You know, you don't often look at comedy as a way to, you know, break into millions or to have a career if you're working class. I don't think it comes, the thought doesn't come as naturally. But a bunch of middle class people sitting around, nothing else to worry about except taking the piss out of things with their friends. Of course comedy occurs to them, you know? So they get into comedy, and then suddenly, you know, you just got a kind of a middle class ring, I guess, and that, unfortunately, it seems to have only happened recently, that there is acceptable and unacceptable subjects, you know, like and even when you don't cover them. I was banned from the Edinburgh Festival. My act, it's just silly jokes. It's just like IT crowd jokes or Father Ted jokes. I don't think there's anything about the trans issue. Maybe one joke once, but it's like, you know, it's suddenly there's certain people who no, they're not allowed. They're not allowed to be on a stage or in front of an audience or speak to people. No. You know, like where did that come from?
I think that might be one of the reasons, actually, because the one thing that they do have in the US is different scenes in different places. And so you might not be welcome on the, you know, Los Angeles scene if you make those jokes, but you can go to Austin, you can go to New York, you can go to different parts of the country. Whereas in the UK, there's one scene.
Sure.
It's controlled by about 3 people.
Yeah.
And if those 3 people happen to think, you know, trans women are women or whatever, and you don't, that's sort of you.
Yeah.
Isn't it? That seems to me a big part of it as well, is like there's one narrative. I mean, Andrew Doyle, who is a mutual friend of ours, of course, always makes this point about Nika Burns in 2018. This is the woman who runs the Edinburgh Comedy Festival, said, you know, I look forward to the woke future of comedy where comedians decide what isn't acceptable. And if that's one person and there's three others who happen to, you know, be TV commissioners and whatever, sort of between the four of them, they can basically set the agenda.
Yeah.
And then they don't even have to enforce it because everyone else is going to fall in line.
Yeah, and also the thing that happened to me was you know, as a warning for the others. You know,
Yeah.
it's like
You're the head on a spike.
Yeah. And so, you know, everybody is being frightened out of engaging in this conversation. And one of the things that I've been desperately trying to get across to people for the last 5 or 6 years is, if we all do it, they can't win, you know? Have you ever heard of oh God, this may end up on the cutting room floor. Maybe just keep this for your Patreon people. Have you ever heard of a game called Werewolf?
No.
Werewolf is a party game. We used to play it with all my celebrity mates, you know, about 12 of us around a table. You need a lot of people, you know. Everyone gets a piece of paper. It's either got villager written on it, vast majority, but 2 have the word werewolf written on it. It's divided into day and night phases. Someone runs the game to make sure no one's cheating. And they go, okay, it's nighttime, everyone close your eyes. Everyone closes their eyes. Then they go, werewolves, open your eyes. The 2 werewolves open their eyes and they see the other one and they give a little thumbs up to show that they've clocked each other. And then the woman says, werewolves, choose someone to kill during the night. And the werewolves go, right. They say, okay, everyone close your eyes. It's morning time, open them again. During the night, Francis was killed. The game then becomes
Predictable.
You always get rid of the badly written character first.
Mate, you'd be the first to go in any scenario. That's
exactly.
just the fact.
Exactly.
Mate.
But no, it'd be the black character first, then me.
Yeah.
So like so basically there's then a conversation, and this is where it gets interesting. During the day phase between all the villagers and the 2 werewolves over who the werewolves are. And the 2 werewolves are trying to draw attention to other people. I heard a noise from over here, and the other werewolf is like, yeah, I think I did too, and all that sort of thing. Now the game, then at the end of the day, the villagers have to decide who they're going to kill. And they say, well, we're going to kill Constantine. And it's revealed by the person running the game, I'm afraid Constantine was a villager. And the game continues. Okay? The villagers win the game if they kill both werewolves. The werewolves win the game if they kill all but 2 villagers. The game was invented by a student of sociology in Russia who wanted to prove his thesis that an uninformed majority will always lose a battle of information against an informed minority.
Wow.
Yeah. And the werewolves usually win. Even if you have 12 people around the table, the werewolves will usually... I once won by turning in the other werewolf.
I mean, you are in show business, Graham. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, that's clever. You turned in the other werewolf.
Yeah. And we won.
Wow.
So that just shows when you have hidden information,
Yeah.
you can completely manipulate a large group of people. That's happening in the NHS. It's happening in publishing. It's happening in every middle class industry, because there's always 1 or 2 or 3 people who think they themselves are non-binary, have a kid who's told them they're non-binary, or whatever it happens to be. And those people are controlling the conversation. So when Rachel Rooney, who is a children's author, wrote a beautiful book called My Body Is Me, little book for toddlers, like you might call it an anti-dysphoria book, a book to make you comfortable in your own bones for little toddlers. They destroyed her career. They called her age. They said she was engaging in conversion therapy. They wrote to now the people who did this were in the Society of Authors, the authors union, who are supposed to stand up for their members, and they helped destroy her career.
Because there's a couple of werewolves going, hold on a second, this is a bit transphobic, and then everyone else is too afraid to say, no, it's not, because then you become the werewolf suspect, etc., etc., etc.
Exactly. That's it's like
we're not going to leave. We're not going to put that for that. That will be in the interview.
Oh, good.
It's such a good. way of looking at it. And I've always thought.
Oh, by the way, just in case people are looking for it and think there's no good, it was actually originally called Mafia.
Mafia, yes, yeah, I've played that game, and the werewolves do usually win.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting point because my sense of history from what I've read and understood is a small, highly motivated minority often willing to break the rules. That usually means in the historical context use violence, but this is a form of violence. It's just not physical, it's destruction in other ways, right? A small motivated minority willing to play by a different set of rules will often be able to cower the majority because of the collective action problem, which is what you were talking about. And
it's played out in various mass movements before, from Christianity to communism to National Socialism. Scientology is the best example, where even the people at the bottom level didn't know some of the actual teachings of Scientology. They were kept in the dark until the very last moment. The funniest example of that is when I think it was Paul Haggis, who wrote Crash, a not very good Oscar winner, reached the highest level once, and he went in for a meeting, and they said, well, this is what's going on. A god called Xenu put planes inside volcanoes, and he just suddenly realized, after years of working for the Scientologists, these people are insane.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a similar thing going on here. There's a kind of a deliberate. Forgive me if I run off the question. I hope I'm not.
You do whatever you want.
Right.
But there's a deliberate kind of obfuscation around key aspects of this issue. Like, for instance, what does trans mean? Does it mean transsexual? Right? That's the way I would interpret it, the way I used to. But now it appears to mean transsexual and Eddie Izzard. And Eddie is a cross-dresser. So...
Hold on, what is a transsexual?
A transsexual is someone who's had an operation to cut off their genitals, That's how I always thought of it, Like, I don't know, even that definition might be
Well, even that's
wobbly
not
at the moment.
satisfactory because it's like, they didn't wake up one day and went, oh, I feel gender dysphoria. There's a process that will take you up to that, right?
And one thing that's happened is, I think that there's a definition of gender reassignment in the Equalities Act that says something like they have had this procedure or are thinking of having it. So that means everybody is thinking of it. Anybody can be thinking of having it. And I realized that, quite early on, that this was a self-selecting group of people who just said, I'm trans. And that could range from Eddie Izzard, right? To someone who has debilitating gender dysphoria, has an obsessive, recurring, invasive thought that they need to get rid of this to make themselves okay. And it's like, these two have nothing to do with each other. They have nothing to do with each other. So why are there... So it seemed to me that suddenly you've created this informed minority who can... there's a very famous... sorry, this is probably... please do cut out any of this where I'm rambling. But as to the werewolves point, there's a very famous document called the Denton's document. Have you heard of it?
No.
Mm-mm.
It was a law firm called Denton's who worked pro bono on advice to give trans rights activists, and it was literally for this reason, on pushing through laws or bills or whatever that would not be popular with the public. And there's a number of bits of advice given, including avoid the media, don't get drawn into debates, target young politicians, And when you think about some of the people like Nadia Whittingham and Mary Black, who are pushing this stuff, they're all really young.
Yeah.
And
very empathetic and not very bright. This is the optimum combination. Someone who really cares but doesn't really understand the issues very well.
Exactly. And so the Denton's document laid all this out in very bald terms, And as I always say, this is the first civil rights movement that has been told to avoid the media. And when you think of it, when have you seen figures who are supposedly on the other side of this issue, right? Like Susie Green or the Nancy Kelly late of Stonewall. When have you seen them on not panel shows, on news shows discussing this issue? They don't do it because the desire is to create a completely suffocating. The desire is to completely suffocate the conversation.
Yeah.
To give it no air whatsoever.
And Graham, on that point about werewolves, I think what has been very instructive to that issue is the revelation of how exactly did our civil service become convinced about all of this? How exactly did the police become convinced of all of this? How exactly did other government and sort of Quango-like structures become convinced that this ideology is the right way to go? And we now know, don't we?
Yeah. All the tactics that were used in this, in the Denton's document. And you can download it, you can read it yourself, and there's some very good pieces about it online.
But specifically, I mean, mermaids, etc., being heavily involved, this organization, in essentially teaching them these highly contested ideas, to put it very mildly.
Well, here's an interesting thing. Did you know that mermaids used to be a great organization?
I didn't know that, no.
Yeah, mermaids in the old days...
Well, like Stonewall.
Yeah, exactly. And mermaids in the old days were specifically for children who had dysphoria, you know? Then Susie Green came along. Susie Green had a gay or at least gender non-conforming child who the husband, I'm not saying anything out of order here. This was a TED talk that was up for years until it was suddenly taken down without explanation. And she said that her husband didn't like the son playing with girls' toys, you know? And she's doing it like a TED talk. She's got the thing. She's doing all the hand, the hand gestures you get in TED talks, you know. And then and all the little phrases which would change my life forever, you know, all this stuff. Yeah,
That's so good.
And she's doing it right, but there's this huge gap. It's like her husband didn't like him playing with girls' toys. Suddenly, she goes to Thailand with the kid at 16 and gets his penis cut off. You know, so. She told him he was trans. She put him on hormones, put him on puberty blockers and hormones. In fact, there's a very famous excerpt of a documentary about her where she's laughing because her 16-year-old son's penis wasn't large enough to create the inverted vagina. This is another reason why people don't like to talk about this issue, because it's horrible. So this woman went into mermaids with, you know, she'd obviously spent too much time into the night on forums listening to other people who think they have trans kids and believing everything they say. And she entered into mermaids and she changed the culture at mermaids. Similarly, you know, I used to follow, there was a social worker, her name's Lisa Mugger, she's amazing. And she said it only takes a few people to groom an organization. So again, and you know, and they've even made it a kind of a official part of a business in the diversity and inclusion, or EDI. I'm not sure what it's called in.
I prefer I prefer DIE.
Yeah.
DIE.
yeah. DIE departments, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like one of the things that made me realize something was really badly wrong at Hat Trick was when I handed in a sitcom called Cancelled, and they gave back sensitivity notes, and I thought the whole sitcom is about, you know, how this is ridiculous. Yeah. The sensitivity reader said, people might think you're making fun of diversity and inclusion measures. You know?
And we've touched on Hat Trick, which are probably one of the biggest comedy production companies in the UK. When did it start affecting your career? When did you start noticing colleagues turning against you?
Well, it didn't really. One of the things about cancellation, especially during COVID, was that it all just happened silently. You know, you don't really. Still, I don't. There may be some people who just think I'm great and think I'm completely on the right track, but I can't call them to face another disappointment. You know, and people, you know, yeah, they just didn't announce. Well, Graham Linehan's a non-person now. It just kind of happens. The thing
But hold on, they're sitting on your musical now, aren't they?
Yeah.
hat trick. So you clearly know that they have the rights to it. They're not going to let you do it.
They have half the rights, and the other half are owned by me, author, and Neil Hannon.
Yeah.
And they're sitting on it in what I think is an act of kind of preemptive cultural vandalism, simply because I've stood up for women's rights, you know, and I've stood against the medicalization of children, which I would argue is should be everyone's priority. You know what I mean? So we have the musical. We had it on its feet. We put it on a few times. There were even little dance routines, you know, to try and sell it to people who might put money in, all this sort of stuff. And now they're just sitting on it. It should be on. It should be on. It should have been on for the last 2 years, you know? The other day I had to hide my car in case it's repossessed. That's how bad my money situation is at the moment, you know? I should have a musical on. It should be up and running for like 3 years. But because of this ridiculous and, you know, homophobic, misogynistic movement, it was just stolen. And all Hat-Trick and my colleagues would have to do would be to say, of course women should have fair sports. Of course children shouldn't be mutilated and sterilized. Do you know what I mean? These are not controversial positions to hold. But for some reason, they refuse to do it.
And the thing that's also heartbreaking, yet it says a lot about this case, is the musical is a musical of Father Ted.
Yeah.
One of the most beloved sitcoms of the last 30 odd years, which is still shown, which is still quoted, which the character of Father Dougal is now a staple when people talk about comedy and modern comedy. This would have sold out immediately.
Whoever puts this out is basically printing money.
Yeah. But it's not being stopped because of the public. It's being stopped because theaters are refusing to put it on, and Hat-Trick and my colleagues are refusing to defend me and say, you know, this is ridiculous and make an issue out of it.
Even so, your colleagues, the people that you wrote this with.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I spoke to some of them afterwards, and again, I mean, it's so weird. This is what I mean when I say when you're at the center of it, it's hard to know what's going on, because they didn't seem to understand the issues. You bring them up and it's like it's the first time you've told them about it. And over the years, they had seen what had been happening to me. They'd seen me lose opportunities. I've been telling them exactly what the problem was, been getting largely agreement, you know, and suddenly it's seen again as a kind of a hobby I have, you know. It's like, no, they're sterilizing a generation of gay kids. They're telling gay kids that they're actually straight, but they were born in the wrong body, and they need drugs and surgery to take care of that problem. That's evil. And I cannot get anyone to stand by my side and say, yeah, you're right, that's evil, you know?
And this, the thing that shows in a way, because how weird this all is I remember when I was growing up, corporations, whether it's TV or, we all kind of accepted that they were immoral. The bottom line was the bottom line. And as long as it was going to make money, then that's fine. But they would rather not make money.
Yeah.
Lots of money, particularly during a pandemic and coming out of a pandemic where everybody's short of money.
Yeah.
Because of this.
I wrote it literally thinking that it will be a bit like being in a lovely mass. You know?
Yeah.
Like one of the things I feel, even though I'm an atheist, I do feel a little bit of a loss of the fact that we don't have a weekly event where we all go and shake hands with our neighbors, you know? Mm-hmm. And I thought, I kind of saw this as this great release from COVID. I was desperate for it to happen as soon as COVID ended. But you know, 2 years of having my reputation destroyed, 75 hit pieces about me in Pink News, my Wikipedia vandalized and kind of rewritten every time we try and make it, you know, halfway neutral. It just took its toll. And by the time we were ready to go, by the time COVID was over, they just said it wasn't going to happen because unless I wasn't involved with it, you know. And the thing that really got me was, I said to them, look, okay, I'll stay away, but I'd like to come in every so often and see how it's doing, see if it's on the right track. And Jimmy Mulville of Hat-Trick said, no, we want a clean break. you know. Again, what have I said that is so terrible to deserve that kind of treatment, you know?
You know what? It's so wrong when you talk about it. It's just wrong. And I think what you are actually being punished for, my sense is, you're punished for being first, and you're punished for because you had a large voice.
Yeah, maybe.
That's what I think you're being punished for.
Yeah.
And you're in the wrong industry. If you were
Yeah.
like an oil well rig man or something, no one would give a shit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like when I came over here, like I never got any anti-Irish racism. I got one weird, I think someone called me a paddy in a police station once. I think that was it. But then again, I wasn't a police station. But like the rest of the time I've had, you know, everyone's very respectful and everything's been going great. But like, I think what I did was, in the end, was I transgressed certain a certain etiquette, in that, like, you know, this is a middle class movement. It's bored middle class kids who are often the victims of it, and you know, I was kind of breaking an unwritten rule for going against little Jimmy's idea that he's actually a third sex that's never existed before. You know.
Do you think part of it as well is that you are a heretic, in that you
Yeah.
were you were firmly part of the liberal establishment?
Yeah, I was,
And then
I was
you
a
did-
node.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I see it. And we've all got to be so careful about becoming nodes, about just transferring information that because one or two, like what was crazy about the trans women or women thing is that all these people who I'd believed for years, including people in the Gamergate fight, who I'd been fighting for, trying to, you know, defend them from trolling and all this sort of stuff, they believed it. And it was like, it just kind of made me realize, oh my God, what else is bullshit? Do you know what I mean? All these kind of things I'd taken for granted, all these reasons that I'd gone in with both feet when I was fighting with someone online, and you know, like, which was never a problem when I was doing it against the right, but again, do it against the left, you're dead. And I was using I was actually quite polite during the conversation, because I knew that any slip would be punished. I knew the way they worked, you know, but it didn't matter. They used to do things like they took a screenshot of a joke I made to my wife where I called her a bitch, and used that as an example that I was a misogynist.
Wow.
You know, they faked they fake Mumsnet comments where I admit to sending dick pics to women on Mumsnet. You know, one guy, a doctor, did a fake prescription for me, like that I needed mental pills, and put it on a real NHS prescription, you know. So, you know, it was just like sorry, just remind me how we got into this, because sometimes these things, there's so many stories to this, they pile up, and I lose my train of thought.
So we were talking about heretics.
Oh yeah. So yeah, but like it was kind of I think one of the reasons why I was landed on with hobnail boots, so to speak, was because, like J.K. Rowling, I was very, very left wing. I was extreme. I ticked all the boxes, you know, Israel, tick, everything, you know. And then, you know, J.K. Rowling did the same thing, and similar to me as well. J.K. Rowling, again, impeccable credentials as a lefty, you know. But more than that as well, we had both created things that they liked.
Yeah.
And they knew that if our voices carried, they'd be in trouble. So that's why, you know, they do things like, you know, they take J.K. Rowling's name off school buildings and stuff like this. It's designed to make everyone think there's something wrong with this person. There's something badly wrong. As I say, Amy Ham, 3 years in a work tribunal because she put up a poster saying, I love J.K. Rowling. So again, J.K. Rowling created Harry Potter, which kind of, you know, has had 3 generations reading ever since. You know what I mean? Like at a time when computer games should be completely obliterating that activity for young people. And she just saved, like, you know, saved publishing, really. But all these kids who grew up with her at the same time were also being influenced by lunatics on Tumblr and Reddit, who believed a series of completely incoherent things that you know, actually kind of appropriately enough, are a form of magic, you know? You could change sex, you know? You can escape you can escape your biology, you know? And these things are like, unlike the magic spells in Harry Potter, these are really dangerous things to tell kids, you know? So yeah, we had to be destroyed, and conclusively, you know.
It's a sad story, man. And you know, I haven't really heard you tell it quite to that level before, and I'm really sorry that this is the way it's been. It must be very difficult. It must be very difficult. I will say though, from an outside perspective, probably hard for you to see it like this, as you said at the beginning. I actually do think we're making progress on this issue, and I think the more time goes by, the more vindicated you'll find yourself. So hang in there, because I do think there's there's many other things about which I'm not optimistic at all. But on this one, I think, certainly in this country, we're actually making progress. And I think that's partly down to you. I know that so many of our female fans in particular, as we call them, the angry lesbian brigade,
My people.
Your people.
They all look a bit like me.
They do.
All right, mate, don't laugh at it that much.
Well,
in so
I
much
was going to
trouble
say
there.
like both of you, but you know.
But the women are annoyed as well.
Yeah. But so many of them are really grateful, you know, that there was a man actually who was not some, you know, I mean, you are a right-wing evil bigot now, but you weren't at the time, who was prepared to actually say something. So I know it's really tough right now, but you know, your book has done well. It's getting great reviews from people who are being objective about it, and I really think that this is you'll look back on this moment actually with pride.
Yeah,
I really do.
Oh, I already do.
Good.
I already do.
Good.
Yeah. I feel like I was kind of asked a question that people are asked every so often in history, and I kind of answered it correctly. You know.
absolutely. And Graham, there's also something that I want to say to you, which is they may be able to do all these things to you. They may be able to stop your work being published for the moment, but times will change.
But why do you hate trans people?
But they will never take away your talent. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. You are a generational talent, Graham.
Oh, mate. I
You are.
really appreciate it. Thank you.
You inspired me. I'm starting to tear up now. To want to be a comedian and want to be...
Really?
Yeah.
Fucking hell, man.
Father Ted.
Guilty.
Yeah, there's about 12 people who've seen my gigs in total who are very angry at you. But you, with what you did with your work, it was sensational. And you don't lose that brilliance overnight and through what you've been through. And eventually when you come out of this, because just as sure as night happens, dawn will come. When the dawn will come, what you produce after everything that you've been through will be so beautiful and brilliant, and I can't wait to see it.
Oh, mate. That means a lot. Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate it. But it feels like the ending, though. Is that the ending?
It sort of has to be now. It sort of feels like after that, anything we ask is going to be weird. But as you know, I mean, we do ask, before we go to questions from our supporters, and a lot of people have asked questions, we do tend to ask our final question, which is, what's the one thing we're not talking about that we should be? And you know, you might have thoughts on it, you might not.
No, I can rustle something up.
Yeah?
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, is that? Are you asking me now? Oh, I see. Sorry.
This is actually like a conversation.
That's actually the question. Right. Excuse me. Well, shit. The thing that just jumped into my head is Eric Hoffer's True Believer. I think everyone should be reading it. It is a history of mass movements, mass kind of delusions sometimes, and he wrote it in 1953. He was like some working class guy who taught himself how to think in various different libraries, and wrote this theory of what connected mass movements, everything from National Socialism to Christianity. Actually, did we talk about this earlier?
No.
Oh, good, okay.
He's the guy that said every great cause begins as a movement, becomes a business, and eventually degenerates into a racket.
Yeah. Did he say that? That's interesting. Basically, he wrote it in 1953, and it could have been written yesterday about this particular movement. This movement ticks all the boxes of one of these kinds of moments in history. You know, it needs it's usually pretty comfortable people who run these kinds of movements. There has to be a sort of nihilism abroad. That means it attracts people who've given up hope on other things. It's a very nihilistic moment at the moment. Everyone thinks the world's going to end in a couple of months and so on. And I think all these things have come together in real life, the way he wrote about them. And like, I was just driving, I was on the tube train up here, and again, you can't highlight it, because you just end up highlighting the whole book is yellow, you know, because everything just strikes you as, like, there's a whole section in it where he talks about, you know, how faith in a doctrine like gender ideology, or like National Socialism, or like communism, is so kind of complete that you can't really have conversations with people about it. They'll cover up their ears before they listen, because you're questioning the doctrine. You're questioning the true faith that will lead everyone into a better world. And there's actually kind of, you know, at the heart of gender ideology, there is a kind of a reach for something good, which is the idea that if we change our language, then the reality of sexism will change. And it's just not true. All that happens is that you create kind of a kind of super what's the word? Oh God, you know, when you're a super privileged form of male, right? You know what I mean? The sacred class, I sometimes call, you know. And that's what's happening. The opposite to what they set out to do. It hasn't destroyed sexism. It has created, as someone puts it, the patriarchy in stilettos, you know? And that's what this is. And yeah, his book will, I think reading that book will everybody reading it will just have a light bulb moment, you know?
Graham Linehan, thanks for coming on. Follow us over to Locals, but before you do, make sure you get yourself a copy of Tough Crowd, and head over to Locals, where we ask Graham your questions.